work, you know? We gonna make it work.
We're gonna make it work. Yes. All right. We are live. So let us settle in and give folks a minute to find us and come in. I am drinking water today. Yeah, lots of water today. Been trying to my cycle will be starting later this week, so I'm trying to make sure I'm keeping nice and hydrated to support the flow.
Yes.
If possible.
Supporting the flow. I'm actually having some cacao this morning.
Cacao is the business. All righty. So the title that I put for today is Looking Ahead. And I've been waiting all week for, contemplative questions to come through, and nothing really was coming through except a little bit this morning. Oh, hello, folks. Let me say hi to everybody. So we have Aisha joining, drinking a mocha in London. Finally got to join live. Yes, yay. I know London is 8 hours ahead, so thank you for joining live. We international in this bitch.
Yeah.
So welcome, and thank you for letting us know what you're drinking. I am joining from Southern California. For anybody who is new, drinking water right now. And Diahnna, you are drinking cacao.
Cacao, and I'm also in Southern California.
Yes. Lisha Curl just joined, drinking coffee in Arkansas. Oh, Arkansas. I don't think I forgot you were traveling. Well, thank you for coming from Arkansas. That's a new state that at least that I know of that has joined any of these conversations. So welcome to anybody else who in. As you come in, say hello to the Soul family. Let us know where you're joining from, what you are drinking on, eating, whatever. So but the title for today I had was Looking Ahead, and I wasn't really coming up with any questions, nothing, big was coming through. But at least the direction for looking ahead is literally looking ahead, like what's next. And even more so in the context of what we see as a possible future. And I think, I don't know, see how this feels, going big and then bringing that in smaller and smaller and smaller until it becomes a more intimate description of what that is in general the framework I was going for. But there was something else that was popping in this morning as I was getting ready. And I should have wrote it down as soon as it popped in, but hopefully it'll come in later. But it seemed like it was related. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. But yeah, we'll see. But they're loving your curls.
Oh, thank you. Yes, they're back. I just got my hair cut, so the curls are popping again. Because those dead ends are cut off. Thanks, y'all. Yay.
Nice. So what are you? Oh, anything that's popping up for you for conversation?
Well, I mean, we'll see where that goes. And after yesterday with Lightworker Incubator alum sustainer series, the peace is pleasure. I would love to dive into that. I think that just, peace as pleasure and how we define pleasure. And all of that yesterday was just like,
Interesting. Well, given that has come up, do you get a sense that has now shifted, or is it transforming your vision of what's next?
No.
World? Okay.
Actually, no. Like macro vision of what's next, has so much peace and spaciousness and nature and ease that yes, the pleasure is in the peace of macro vision.
Yeah.
And I will say, well, I'll share a celebration. First booking of the year.
Oh, yes. Oh yeah, because you talked about you were on
Avail at the beginning of our So and I figured out, it's not happening because if you don't hear, you don't hear, and it's been a few weeks, and so very excited about that.
When did you find out? When did you find out?
So it's a feature film, and her name is totally escaping my mind right now. but Black woman director. The film itself is really looking at a Black family, an elite Black family, and I'm playing the mother in a flashback. So that's all I can really talk about. But I love it because the role is just layered and so rooted in exploring class and power within our community. So yes, it's juicy. I love it. But this is tying into what you're talking about with peace and pleasure, and then this will go micro into macro. So it used to be I was so ruled by, a booking would either get me really excited, or if I didn't get it, it would break me. Like, it would take me off my center, right? And when we're talking about pleasure, I mean, this is a little bit different, celebration, but what brings me joy, right? Yes, amazing roles bring me joy. And I got the news yesterday. I was excited, but it doesn't take me into this, how do I explain it? It used to be that something like this would mean that, okay, now everything's okay. Okay, now since I booked it, that must mean that I'm doing the right thing, or I'm good enough, and maybe I will get enough. Like, it had the outside had such an impression on my worth. Okay, I must be being a good girl because these things are going great, and that means that I'm doing well, therefore I'm getting rewarded. Like, this whole reward and punishment system. Old colonial mindset in that way, and old relationship with Santa Claus in the sky type God in that way, like all of these things. And so I say that even just to recognize that in myself with this booking yesterday, which is a role that I love, which sometimes I book, I don't necessarily love the role, right? Like, just get to sink my teeth into it. All of these things, get to go to South Carolina, all these things. And I feel great. And it's like an of course. I don't mean that to sound arrogant, but I mean in the sense of, yes, I receive. And of course this is happening. Why? These are the seeds I've planted over 20 years, right? Like, of course these things are coming to fruition. So speaking into that, it lets me know where my new homeostasis is, right? Where my center is, and that I am approaching life. And I think this just also comes with wisdom and age and what have you, but approaching life in a way that still is like neutral mind, as we talk about in yoga. It's not swayed either way. And it's still, the pleasure is in the peace of it. Like, I celebrate, still celebrating. And that's pleasure for me. I get to do a role that I love. And yet it's not this spike. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
So yeah,
well, first of all, congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Yay.
Congratulations. Because I think, was that last week we were talking about it, 2 weeks ago?
I think it was 2 weeks ago, because this was like in the very beginning of the year. Yeah. Okay. I had the callback was with the director, which was great. It got me all juiced up again about the creative process, because sometimes it can feel like it's in a vacuum. You know what I mean? Like, I'm recording this at home. We're recording our stuff at home. You don't hear back if it's not a yes, and really it's a lot of numbers, right? I could do 50 auditions and I might hear from one if I do, right?
Yeah, I mean, so that's a really subtle place to walk, as someone who, myself as someone who is very puts a lot of value in the work that I do, as an indication of my character, right? Not perfection, but that regardless of how polished it may be, that the core work is good work, right? And so being in situations where you do get that spike of like, okay, the good work is being recognized, I'm getting my wants and my desires fulfilled. Yes, that does need to happen, but that's also a really thin line of being like, oh, if this doesn't happen, that means something's wrong with me. And being able to get to a place where you trust your work enough regardless of outcome. And even that can be tricky, because it's like, it can't be trusting the work without working the work.
Right.
Right? You can't
No,
be just like, oh, well, I'm not getting these jobs because they just don't see, my greatness. It's like, well, you still have to do your work. You still have to work in your craft. Like, you still have to do all those things and get as well feedback externally, even if it's not from the booking of a job, of like, okay, no, this is actually quality work, or I wouldn't even be getting a callback or even a veil if that wasn't the case, right? So that also can be an indication of like, yes, the work is good, and just as a matter of like whether or not this relationship will work.
Right.
That's the interdependence.
Yes.
Because it's like, I just bring my best self, they bring theirs, and if our values match, then we can do it. And if not, it can't, and I don't have to hold additional stuff around that. And you're right, I think that does come with time.
That's why it's like, I think this is a time. This is not,
Yeah. Like Jynnette 20 years ago in the business versus Jynnette now. I'm just like,
ooh, child, yeah. That's why I love my babies, all my babies out there, the youngins in the business. And I'm just like, oh, come here and let me hug you, because it's just like, it does. Like I said, I think it comes with age and wisdom.
Yeah.
And it does come with a practice, though, what you just tapped into. Really being honest with yourself about, are you putting the work in? Putting the work in, by the way, does not mean burning yourself out and proving. But we all know, we all have our own barometers of knowing, like, if we've done the work. And at the end of the day, this is once again ties back into this being an inside out game rather than outside in. It's not about if I book it. Of course, that feels great, right? But it's not about if I book it. It's about, do I, acting world is like, don't worry about booking the job, book the room, right? And then and even if I go deeper than that, fuck even any of that outside stuff. Did I actually have the experience of this living being that's on paper, and was I able to embody that and at least tell that story? Because it's somebody's story, even if it's not mine personally, right? And do I feel good with that, no matter what? Like, do I feel okay? Because I know when I do a half-assed job and I phone it in on these tapes. I mean, come on, right? I have been doing this for 20 years, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I know when I'm doing the work and when I'm not doing the work. And I think that's in everything in life, right? Yeah. And so even when I think about what's next, it used to be that I thought, okay, once I get to this place, or once I book my series regular, or, God, if I'm doing this at 40, God forbid, like, I'll be huge by then, right? It's so funny, all these limitations we put on ourselves. But I'm forever an artist, I'm forever an actor, right? So part of the macro is that, I'll continue to be acting. But the macro is like land, bicontinental. These are like bits and pieces still coming in, right? I do think I'll still have like a home base in LA, hopefully in some nature in Topanga, and really
mudslides.
What'd you say? Mudslides? Look at you, stop it.
Right.
And yeah, and I want to be, bringing folk back to the continent, to Africa as well, to have that experience, whatever I'm cultivating there. And like I said, I'm getting bits and pieces of that. I don't know fully what that looks like yet.
Yeah.
But I feel into spaciousness. I feel into just knowing like this community that I participated in, that I have built, that has also welcomed me. I feel into nature. And I just feel into like barefoot on the earth, chilling, community. I come here, might be a little bit busy for a few months, and then I'm chilling.
Yeah.
Hands in the dirt, like, some light travel. But for me, it's really about, I'm a Taurus. I love luxury. I love nice things. And I'm earth. So it's like, my luxury isn't necessarily like some modern house with a ton of marble and like, that's not me. But my luxury is a lot of spaciousness. It's the smells of nature. It's my feet in the dirt. It's, and then you walk in my house and it's luxurious as well. So it's, all those things. Macro, bicontinental, doing my art, really giving back in a way to fund other young Black women coming up as actresses, as storytellers specifically.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's what's there so far. But simplicity, 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 as you said yesterday.
Yes.
And it really is like, it gets to be simpler and have more space. And I just get to, and I'm already doing it. Like, I get to do all the things I love, right?
Yeah, I think on a macro level, when we talk about looking ahead, I feel this has come before. I don't know if it's been in our conversation this month, but how we're already here.
Yes.
Like we are already living our dream life. We've already, made it over the mountain, and anything and everything beyond this is just an expansion of what's here.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like there's no more there's no point B to get to, because we already are at point B.
Yes.
And letting that land. I know for me in particular, letting that. Oh, I was talking about this when I was in your coaching group. Letting that land in my body, because, like, spiritually and intellectually, that has been clear, right? But each aspect of this has its own timing and reorientation, and coming into alignment with that which is non-physical. So allowing my body, my unconscious, my subconscious to be able to shift slowly in a restorative, easeful way of being like, oh, we are here. We're good. Okay, just more of this. And it's a very different flow. And one of the things that I've really been loving in particular is being able to really, I would say, begin to perceive, because I think I'm only really now at this point in my life starting to understand how much energy we use and how much goes into creating or just doing anything. Like, the subtlest shift of perception can be like, oh, this is actually going to cost a lot of output. And I don't realize it, because my mind is going like almost speed of light. The body is like, yeah. But I also perceive like all these other things on the road we gotta have to do. So, like it's a time is becoming much more malleable.
Yes.
Understanding how really energy works at my soul level, not even as a like, oh, this is how it is for everybody, but just like really the nature of my soul in relationship with nature, with Mother Earth, with this physical world, what that even requires, how much spirit is behind what I do. And folks have been telling me that for a minute. It's like, you give so much. I'm like, I'm not even doing it. But like, I think I'm starting to get it now. I'm like, oh, I do give a lot.
Yeah.
This is my natural flow, but this also has its own cost.
Yes.
So I was like, oh, let me recalibrate a little bit. So I perceive that more and understand that more, which also for me, I think helps me help others understand me and love me better in the way that I can receive, in the way that they feel that they can actually do.
That's beautiful. Wow.
I feel like I just dropped a big spirit bomb on myself, so I have to rewatch
Yeah,
it.
I know. I'm gonna have to rewatch that. Like, this is one of those, I'm like, that's a whole nother conversation. Because that's just so layered. First of all, in really understanding self, understanding how much you're giving, understanding capacity, understanding where to recalibrate, how much, what is the cost, and then also from that understanding, now you can teach people about really what you need. But without that understanding, you don't even have that space for people to be able to be like, oh, now I know how I can show up, or, That's interesting. Because I last night had, 2 pretty chunky auditions come in, and my mind, it was definitely old mind, went to, oh my God, there's so much. How am I going to get this done? And I got to do all these things in order to get to these layers of my being in order to, and I had to catch myself. I was like, is that really true? Because just like you talked about this relationship with time, you know, I think, you know, time management is kind of bullshit. It's really energy management. So I was like, really, Diahnna? I think you're making this into a mountain molehill and you're practiced in this. So you already know. And respecting what was on that page, right? Like, no, like you're some woman dying of breast cancer and you got kids. Like there's lots to create here. And what do you need in order to do that? You need, I need a focused hour. I mean, I'd love a focused 3 hours if I had it, right? But a focused hour. And that is enough to create from. And I can trust that. And what do I need in that focused hour? You know, whatever I need. I need my tea, I need lights, mints, make it ritual, whatever I need in order for that to be that and focused energy. Because I really had to switch my mindset though, because I was going to make it into a bigger mountain than it was and then psych myself out. And, you know, and I see a lot of actors do this all the time, and not even actors, but a lot of people, period. So it was like, okay, once I check in again, what is really energetically needed for me to do this work and give myself what I need in order to do that. And then it's free flow.
Yeah.
I get out of the fucking way. Spirit uses me and I'm great. You know, it really happened quickly. So I don't know if this is tying into exactly what you were saying, because that's a whole, like, I hope you wrote that down. Well, let's record it. But yeah, understanding energy and energy management.
For me, that also speaks to what we just talked about of this love and appreciation for getting older. Because when you've lived enough, you don't have to expend energy manufacturing an entire new world, right, to live in. You already have that woman, and you just get to tweak it and refine it to match a particular character, right? Because you've either played a character similar, so you already just have an archetype in the toolbox,
right?
Or depending on the character that you're reading for, like there might also be like life experience, but like you already come in locked and loaded.
Yes.
So there's also less efforting that needs to happen, because it's just like, oh, I've lived enough life, so let me just look at the encyclopedia that I already have access to, and what can I play with here? And that's much quicker to do.
Yes.
Than like, I don't understand this at all. I have to build from scratch. Right.
Right. Yeah. Totally different. Yeah.
But yeah, teaching.
There was something I was going to say. Oh, when we were talking about, it's popped up when we were talking, when I was saying, oh, I'm already living it. And now it's just, and you talked about, when we recognize that. And so a question I also like to ask myself, like, with my own vision, or even clients that I work with, okay, you have this vision for your life. So let's say all of that's already here. Let's say you already have it. Let's say, okay, you made it there. There's no there, but you made it there. Awesome. Now what? What is it to like already you have that. Now what? So I've really been sitting that for myself. Okay, you have the land, you have the spaciousness, you're, funding other storytellers, you're creating your own work, you're coming back to the States, stacking some chips, doing whatever films, whatever. Now what? I'm like, ooh, that's a juicy space. And what does that feel like to already have it all? Whatever that all is for you. And now what? What is that woman that has already created all that for herself? Like, what does she wake up thinking? What does she wake up? Like, what is she creating? What is she embodying? So, yeah.
I mean, that's it. It's just thank you.
Yeah. What's coming up for you?
So I know that question for people can tend to be like, oh, what's the next thing to achieve? Really, for me, how that lens is, just enjoying it, which is why when you said like, what does that woman think of when she wakes up, is just thank you.
Thank you.
Like, that's it.
It is like that overwhelming gratitude that comes up. Just sitting in that for a moment. Yeah. Ooh, and I love that. I have to write that down. You know, I got to be writing stuff down. We are here. Because it's true. It's true. Most people, including me, recovering overachiever, fall into, ooh, what do I get to achieve next? You've already achieved it all. I mean, okay, it might be more of that same thing, but what is it? It's thank you. And can you practice that now? I know you are, but like really, it's like, wow. Like, can we be in awe of our lives right now? Like, wow. Like sometimes I'm just like on a walk in my neighborhood and a freaking flower that has started to bloom that was not there 2 weeks ago will like make me tear up. You know what I mean? It's just the awe. And I have to remind myself of that, coming back into that awe, because we don't know what's going to happen next. And can we be in the receptive mode and not being grateful because you think that's going to speed up your manifestation, right? But no, really being from that childlike wonder of awe. You don't know what's going to happen next. What is it to live from that space? And that not being a fearful space, because I've lived from that space. So you don't know what's next, right? So yeah, I love that.
I mean, yes, and there's definitely still tendrils of that for me. But yeah, no, even what you just mentioned about the flower, I was on my walk this morning and passed by this area that I always pass by, and there's a section where there's like a bunch of different like bushes and flowers and things, but in particular, this one bush had like these really vibrant red roses, and I was just like, and like it doesn't normally do red, so like it caught my eye, but I've never seen them be that vibrant. Like I could tell that the universe was like, look at these, and I was just like, whoa, popped. I was like, oh, I just had that moment. And I was just like, oh,
I love that.
That's so awesome, right? But yeah, it's like the more that gets accomplished, the more I'm focused on the micro.
Yeah.
Like, what new tea am I trying? What new coffee am I trying? Like, what new delicious conversation am I having with somebody that I love? Like that's the wealth.
Yes. Yes. Oh, that just popped in my head. This reminds me, I was dating a young gentleman a couple years ago. And
when are we talking?
You're like, which one are we talking about? No, I'm just kidding. I'll tell you later. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, he was awesome. Just a little too young, but he was awesome.
So my petty was right. I was like, how young are we talking?
Still too young. Not young. I mean, he was in his 30s, but that's funny. That's a whole other conversation too. Oh, yeah, no. And I remember we'd been dating for a little while, and he was over my home, and I had other people just in and out that day. It was like, folks were just stopping through, what have you. And I remember, we were winding the night down, and he just looked at me. He was like, "You are so rich." He said, "You're so rich." I said, "Huh?" He said, "You're so rich." He was like, "Look at like so much love in your life and the people you have, and like you're just so free, and you guys are just like dancing in here and having a good time." And somebody else, he's like, "You're just so rich." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right. I'm a rich bitch." You know what I mean? I'm wealthy. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. The micro can inform, so it informs everything. Like the micros and the macro, right?
Oh, listen, that's my mantra. I'm like, every problem at the macro is solved at the micro.
Exactly. No, it's true. There is no macro without the micro. But yeah, really simplicity. After you saying that yesterday, it just stuck.
Yeah, right.
Looking at the simplicity in your micro right now, and it's like, oh, and where is the pleasure there that brings you peace? And just amplifying that, really. And amplifying to me literally means just paying more attention to. Right? That's it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because what are you paying attention to? I think, amplify can feel like amplify, make it big. And it's like, well, whatever you pay attention to expands. So what do you pay attention to? Are you paying attention to like, oh, I hate these floors in my kitchen, because I do hate my floors in my kitchen. But am I paying attention to the floors I hate in my kitchen, or am I paying attention to my beautiful hardwood floors? I mean, this sounds so petty, but I'm serious, right? Like, it's this simple.
Mm-hmm. I mean, but you like what you like. Like, that's fine.
No, exactly. Like what you like. But I'm okay. I know. Okay, maybe that's not a good example. I just know, I feel like what I notice in myself and a lot of my clients and friends and lovers, all of it, is that we focus on what's wrong. We focus on what we don't like. We focus on what's not going right, rather than that vibrant ass rose that you just passed by. Mm-hmm. That's all. You know, it's like, what are you paying attention to? What you pay attention to expands. Mm-hmm. Amplify your pleasure, and pleasure meaning that which brings you peace in your life. Mm-hmm. And see what happens. Mm-hmm. Stuff shifts when you start to pay attention to things that.
I think the shifts happen when you see it, person, place, or thing as it is, not value you've placed on it or belief system you placed on it. It's just this, here's this thing, here's this situation, here's this. And if I was not emotionally connected or immediately connected, and I was looking from the outside in, would I still have this same emotional response? Would I still have this belief system? And 9 times out of 10, it's going to be no.
Ooh, child. That's a read, especially when it comes to dating. But yeah, it is. It's like looking from the outside in, like not putting any kind of, potential, not putting any kind of like, filter over the fantasy of anything, and just really like inventory, right? Like, outside looking in. It's like, yeah, no, I've put all kinds of meaning on this, and yeah.
Yeah. And like how helpful it can be to, I think honestly, that's actually how the soul sees things. It just sees things as they are. And one of my prayers is always for my soul, my higher self, is help me to see myself the way you see me.
Yes.
Help me to love myself the way you love me. Help me to perceive the world the way you perceive the world. Because I know the chaos and the suffering I create. But when I'm aligned, that's actually not the experience that I have. And it doesn't in any way, shape, or form eliminate any opportunity or obstacle. But my experience of engaging and moving through it, especially if it's an obstacle, with much more ease and grace and much more quickly.
Yes.
And usually with a lot more support in moving through the obstacle, rather than just trying to tough it out on my own, because I start to be able to perceive like, oh, there's actually help here.
And there is help there, y'all. We're not supposed to be doing this alone. We're not supposed to be doing it alone.
Listen, I'm still working on that.
I am too.
It's the hyper independence. When you basically,
we needed that.
And not connected, it's just like, oh, like it's like really having to train yourself of like, so even right now in my life, I'm building basically a whole new team of folks, medical profession. Like now that I got an insurance, like, I have a new eye doctor, a new dentist, and I'm going to have a new physician. So it's like all new conversations. And so far, all the experiences have been absolutely amazing. But I noticed in myself, there's a part that's like, oh, I'm going to have to fight here. I'm going to have to know more than they do or whatever, right? Because past experience, rather than, being mindful of that, but also being open to the fact of like, oh, there actually are people who are really good at what they do, have a more humanistic approach to things, and are going to know more than you, and are absolutely committed to having you be your best self. And you won't have to do their job for them. Repeatedly been having that experience of like, okay, lean into support, lean into those who are elder now.
Yeah.
Right? Like rather than peers who are also figuring out with you, which, it's not like you need community, but when you are reparenting yourself, having to actively look for and allow yourself to be open to those who are much further along in life and in experience, in wisdom, and allowing yourself to be poured into has just been, it's going to be a big practice for me this year. I mean, it has been in general, but I see places where it's like, oh, there's so much more leaning into connection that you need to do because you're still way too independent still. Like it's just, yeah. And it's fun, but I reckon like as much connecting as I do with people on a personal level, that does not necessarily translate in other areas. And so that's what's coming to my awareness now. And it's like, okay, as you grow, bring that skill and that trust that you already cultivate on a personal, intimate level to every other level. And know that you can still have that quality of connection. It doesn't have to be like personal, intimate, but it can still be as supportive and interdependent. And you also get to have that experience. It's not an either or. So that's what I'm, at least for short-term looking ahead is actively leaning into bigger community, just bigger community for the community that would, as I tell my business clients, your personal board of advisors.
Yeah.
Right? Like building out more of that, like in a much bigger way.
Yes.
In a much bigger way.
Well, and I love what you said very simply. Simplicity is everything. Just leaning into connection.
Yeah.
Like just that. I've noticed that with myself. I mean, I used to have so much anxiety when it came to like going into social situations. This past weekend for me, honey, I was in the streets, right? Like I haven't been in the streets in a long time. When I say in the streets, I had a friend from New York who's a DJ who came. And so there was a few of us that went to see her. It's been years since I've seen. Shout out to DJ Remarkable, Riri. And then something else I did. Oh, and a friend's birthday. Yes, Jamie's birthday. So old way of being would be a lot of anxiety come up, go in, hyper self-consciousness as far as like, how are people perceiving me? First thing, go get a drink, right? Which could mean the night turns out to be a disaster because anxiety and then go getting a drink and anxiety and drinking is not a good match. But anyhow, and all of this out of the yearning to want to connect, but having the anxiety of like, do I feel safe, right? And that's rooted in, we're not going to get into that this episode, but other trauma. So when the intention is, and this is why, for me, like sometimes having to come back into, because no matter what, we're always creating, we're always being intentional if we're not being intentional. But really being consciously intentional about, for me, it's coming to like you matter, I matter. I've told myself this stuff. You matter, like your contribution to the space. What energy would you love to bring to this space? And then being open to that giving and showing up as that being, and then see what unfolds. So for me, that's been the practice. And I had an amazing time this weekend, right? And didn't get drunk, right? So it was just like, oh, this is really fun. But it wasn't necessarily safe for me to be interdependent and connected growing up. You know, and that's kind of the same thing that we talked about briefly yesterday as well, was, sometimes like exactly what we want can feel like a threat because we're not used to receiving it. So for me, it's like being intentional now when it comes to leaning into connection. This coming back to you saying leaning into connection, because I think as human beings, that's what we all long for. I mean, all of us, we're supposed to have connection, right? So leaning into connection, what does that look like? And then really understanding that you as a being, like all of you listening to this, you are a contribution. And that being you being the gift, what do you want to give as your beingness in that space, and you get to play from that. My energy just used to be subconsciously, like I didn't know that's what it was, but it was people are wanting to take, right? Trauma stuff. People are going to want to take, or maybe it's not safe, or if a man's talking to me, that means he wants to fight. Like everything was like threat perceived.
I mean, but also,
I mean, this is real shit. I mean, just like, listen, it's real shit. Just like when you were talking about the doctor, I was like, but it's real shit that is Black women.
yes,
Like we walk
yeah,
into the hospital and we don't walk out, right? Like
right,
it's
yeah,
real shit to like, but I also think that comes with age where it's like, you already trust yourself. You know that your intuition's is present. So
yeah,
it's like, I can just trust that that's there. I don't have to lead with the defensiveness,
yes, yeah.
which is different. It's just a different approach. And I think that's rooted also in trust and knowing self.
Mhm.
Because I think when we approach, when we approach our days looking through the lenses of awe and ooh, what's here, and curiosity, rather than approach our days looking through the lenses of this world's fucked up and who the fuck sent me a bill today and what does this motherfucker want, and you know what, they're out to get me. Like it's just having a totally different perception of the universe, period. You know, the oath of manifestation. Shout out to Reverend Cheryl Ward. I use it in all of my coaching. I declare absolutely that I live in a friendly universe that is always providing for me.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I first read that years ago, I was like it didn't ring true, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's very true for me now. Doesn't mean that shit's not going to happen and life happens. But your core belief and your core perception about the world, period, when it comes from this place, and let me say when it used to come from this place of like, you know, constantly like navigating threat versus I already, you know, put on protection before I left out the house and I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
And now I get to be curious about this space and like really curious and giving the experience the benefit of the doubt rather than already batching it up in bubble tape to make sure it's safe for me to enter, right? Which means I don't even get to see what's under the tape, right? So yeah, I don't know if any of that made sense.
Yeah, no, and I think what you said about, you know, what's your contribution to the space actually circles back to this thing about, you know, what do we see looking ahead for at a more macro level. And for me, you know, these qualities that we're talking about, the heart-centeredness, the connection to nature and all of that, is very much where the direction that society necessarily will go, because it needs to for the transformation. And the folks who are leading with that are the ones who truly are the change agents. Not just influencers, but like actually creating transformation at that level. And so, you know, these get termed as soft skills, but what everyone is craving for is a reclamation of their humanity.
Yeah.
And so I think for women entrepreneurs in particular, Black women entrepreneurs, I'm so adamant and passionate about us taking up space.
Yes.
Because not all of us, but a lot of us who are doing this work, we are centering that. And that is the contribution. And we are saying, this is valuable. You don't realize this is what you're looking for, but this is actually what you're looking for. Mm-hmm. You're looking for peace. You're looking for a sustainable way to live, like for real, not just as a catchphrase for the moment.
Right.
Right. And we can teach you how to do it because we're actually doing it right now. So we're bringing you into our home.
Yes.
We are point B.
Yes. Yes.
We're point B. This is where you're going to be landing. This is what it looks like. And you will pay me.
And we live in abundance. So you will pay me and the pay will be there.
Yeah.
You'll be able to pay me even if you can't see it all right now, I promise you.
Yeah.
If it's a full yes in your cellular body, your daily bread will be provided. right? And there's something happening now too. I love that you bring all of this up. Well, first of all, tell us more about your macro.
Well, so that ultimately, that contribution is what the vision for Anderson Alchemy is. So the ultimate vision is creating cultural change through consciousness change, because for me, everything, spirit, the non-physical, is the foundation for everything.
Absolutely.
And my thing in always is, if we just go directly to the root and address the roots, everything else adjusts. Because as much as I love work, I don't want to work all the time. I'd rather work more effectively rather than just be busy. And in general, I find people like to be busy rather than actually do the work that is required to get what they want, because getting what they want requires reclaiming power, which means engaging with responsible use of that power. That's another topic, but
right. And going to the root, looking at things as is.
Yeah.
Like, you really want to access that. There ain't no hiding from your own shit either, right? You got to really look at it.
So consciousness change, and in particular, working with those who basically have great influence over culture and consciousness.
Yeah.
In whatever context. So this is just a broad term of leaders, but this could be mothers of children. This could be managers, supervisors, business owners, people who run nonprofits. Like, you touch a lot of people's lives.
Yeah.
You actually are creating culture, whether or not you want to take ownership of that or not, but you are impacting not only those people directly, but the people that they're connected to. So you are a root. You need to get good and a little bit more adjusted to what's natural within you. And that necessarily will trickle. I don't need to know how that is going to be native to you, but I know once you get aligned, then everything else will flow, right? And the different, policies for work-life balance will shift. The different policies for work culture will shift. The different initiatives that your company might do, like, that's going to shift because you are the one who is stewarding that, right? And specifically, like, building out an institute that will address all or at least the main pillars that build good leaders and facilitate interdependence between leaders and groups and organizations.
That's huge.
And that's the relationship building and intimacy piece.
And I don't think that's been modeled.
It hasn't, because I haven't done it yet.
No. Well, she's like, 'cause I haven't done it.
Well, no,
I think it's the ancient way.
way.
I think not ancient way. I think it's what you're doing now, right? But
right.
It hasn't been modeled. Hasn't been modeled. I don't know, last 400 years, right? So I love, hasn't been modeled quite yet. I love that. I can't wait to work together.
Well, yeah. Well, so, but like, the model is, you've already been experiencing the models.
We're already doing it. So
creating like those connections and like setting, connecting certain people together and watching, potentials for relationship build, like, and cultivating intimacy in a way that's still safe and with boundaries, and showing people how that can be done, right? Even with people that you don't know. I understand the value of that. I've learned that over the years, because it's just like, even with something as basic as having friends, I realize how much wealth I have, like, especially here in LA, or anywhere. But like, people don't really have good people in their lives, and they have a really tough time cultivating good relationships, and they don't feel safe, and they don't know what boundaries feels like. It's like, oh, you get to say no to somebody coming into your house? Yeah. Like, and it's, but
well, I think, just like you said, it starts with the root. Are they intimate with themselves?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the scariest for most people. It's why people numb. It's why people, like, people are scared to really just be with themselves. So I think, just like you said, once this starts shifting, then it's the ripple effect. It all starts in a inner, outer game. The
Yeah.
inner shifts, the outer will shift.
Mhm.
We've been brainwashed the other way.
Yeah.
Change the job, change the person, change the house, change whatever, you know, and it'll shift. For about a day, you're going to feel like, ooh, it's different. And you're like, oh. And then guess who's there again? You.
You, yeah.
No matter where you go, listen, I tried it for years. It used to be, moving every year into a different space. And some of that's just like, I do like change, and that comes from moving around a lot as a kid. But a lot of it was like, no, now I get this new space, and now I can, be this version of myself or be a better version of myself. And then, give it a week. Same stuff come up, right? Or it was definitely the moving a lot, or whatever it was. Busyness was a huge thing. Oh my God. To the point where like people are just like, yeah, I don't call you. I know you're busy. It's like, okay. And busy doing what? Busy being busy, so I don't got to sit with me. Usually that's what the busyness is. Or like I said, the achievement for me used to make me feel whole. So yeah, the intimacy piece is key, I believe. And a lot of people are not comfortable with intimacy, true intimacy.
Right. But like, we can't have community if there's no relationship, and there's no relationship if there's no intimacy. And intimacy does not mean, everybody has to be in like intimate space of like all of your business. Like, that's not what I mean, but it's being fully present with another person and taking them in, and whatever that's going to be. But there is a lot of conversation around community, and I'm like, there's no connection.
And community and clique is very different.
Yes.
Can I please say that? Jesus. I see a lot of cliques. I ain't seeing much community. I'm seeing a lot of drama in them cliques too. And I'm like, ooh, child.
Right. All right. So so let's talk about that. What would be the difference between a clique and a community? The first thing that popped into mind for me was a necessary conformity.
Yes. Because clique, to me, the energy of cliques is we belong because we feel safe now that we're in group and we can present in a certain way. Rather than community is real intimacy, real interdependence. I might not even run with you, like talk to you on a regular basis or be out in the streets with you. Yet I know you, I know your why, I know your contribution, so that I can, oh, you know what, this person over here, that family actually was just looking for somebody like you. But that don't mean I necessarily go out with you or I take Instagram pictures with you every week. So, there's a difference. There's a difference. And tell me, what is your definition of clique versus community?
Well, yeah, that the conforming to a thing. It's like a clique to me is when everyone looks the same. At all levels, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. It's just like everybody is like a miniature variation of one kind of archetype that they want to be. Whereas, like, even just with my friends, I have a gamut, right?
You do.
Right, but I'm a gamut.
Yes.
Especially somebody who grew up poor in like Florida, like most of my folks do not look like what people probably think of as like my real people. But that's also why I don't present in a certain way on social media, because I understand like, oh, this is cliquish. Like there is an archetype that I purposefully choose not to be connected with. Not that it's all wrong, but like I understand the power of doing that. And so I actively choose not to do that because I'm just like, oh no, like my people are not quite that polished. And I love that because it's really raw and authentic, which is what's home for me.
Yeah, and there's an honesty about that. Because
Yeah.
I think, in big cities, or like LA especially, LA is a whole different gamut because you also have the Hollywood energy, right? So it's like, it's not normal. I don't know how to explain it. Like, it don't look like my folk who I grew up with in Minneapolis either, right? And
Yeah.
that's, what does that mean? I don't know. I don't even know if polish is the right word. I know what you're saying, but yeah, it's this.
It's manufactured.
Yeah, there we go.
It's
Yeah.
manufactured. Now, I mean, listen, I love a good stunt, and I will always
Come stunting on it.
Yes, like
Yes.
but there's definitely a pretension that can be there. And it's like, oh, if you for a period of time are not showing up with that, are you still part of the clique or not? And that's what comes through. It's like if you deviate from the archetype that the clique is aspiring to, are you still a part of it or not? And more often than not, you will eventually get jettisoned, right? And that's the difference for me between like just the first level of that versus community.
Yeah.
The archetype has become the god rather than the person.
Ooh, false idols.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that. I see that a lot. And I've never been a cliquey girl. And I've always yearned for a community. And then I had to check myself with that too. Like, it's like, oh, but you actually have it. You get to nourish what's here.
Oh.
Bloop, bloop, bloop.
So does that answer the question about, healing the heart from last week? You're already here. You just get more.
It does.
Like, trust what you built.
Yeah.
Trust what you built.
Mm-hmm.
Because especially at this point in both of our lives, there's not really going to be mess that can stick around, even if it does show up for long. Especially now, like it's not really going to be able to stay around for long, even if it does show up. Even if we're trying to keep it in, like it's not. It's just. So at this point,
things move quickly now. It's just like, nope, not for you. Like, okay.
Yeah.
You knew that. Let it go.
Already got it. You just get more of. You get to lean into what you already have.
I get to lean into connection, intimacy. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's end then with the question: what is our contribution to the community in service to transforming greater society? Because I think I want to be really clear about this question. I don't think we have to do anything to be in community because it's not a transaction. Just like we don't have to do anything to be loved by God. Like it's just our existence is enough. So I'm speaking of this specifically as it relates to helping to restore and heal and transform in a wider context, not necessarily intimate space. What are the gifts that we have already that we are bringing, and what's that contribution to the greater community?
That's a deep question. First, I just want to presence. I love what keeps coming up around as you are right now is enough. Like the gifts aren't things that have had to be like you've had to go to school for, or you've had to get certificate. Like you, the being, come with gifts already. And that is enough. Like that is it, right? That is the contribution.
Yeah, and just take a moment, sip some tea. It is a deep question. So sit with that. I have some ideas for myself, but I'm also wanting other things to percolate.
Yeah, this is something that I will say in the past few years, 5 years, has been coming up a lot. I mainly remember specifically a friend of mine, Christina Dunbar, shout out to Christina on this too, who works in women's spaces mainly with writing. and I was doing one of her programs. She takes the stage, and I was doing my back then regular rhythm of just kind of like, I'm here and I'm fully present, and then you just don't hear from me. I'm out. Like, I don't know how to be interdependent yet, right? Didn't at the time.
Yeah.
I remember her looking at me and she was like, do you understand that? Like, when you're not here, like, we miss you. And that hit me in a way then that was just like, at the time.
I mean, I'm already on like,
right? Because it's like, oh, it just was such a mirror for like how I wasn't even valuing my presence. So that being said, that's something that I'm still like being enough with what is just here, period. So with what is here, I think I bring the gift of non-judgment. There's a different word I want to say for that. I think I've always been the person where people feel very safe and seen. And, you know, I'm the person that people come, they tell their things that they thought they were going to go to the grave with, and they're just like relieved. So there's something about really being seen and feeling held, and it's safe. I think I bring that. I think I'm a connector within communal spaces. Like, I'm not great with like just, but in like I can see the gifts and be able to pair up. I think I'm great as far as like natural connector energy of being able to see people's gifts in that way. That's like the director in me, I think, in some ways. And I also bring like a gift of being crass that I think sometimes people are scared.
You know, I love it. I'm like, please.
You know, like I just have many sides to me. I can be ultra classy, and then I can be straight up ratchet, and all of it comes with me. So, I mean, I don't know. That's what comes to mind right now.
Yeah.
I get to sit with that though. I love that question.
Yeah. As you're speaking, I was immediately thinking, I mean, since you volunteered, of like wanting to work together, doing what I do in a smaller space when I'm hosting at my place, in slightly larger groups of folks who don't, know each other, but
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you're good. But basically, having people that I don't understand the process and have been through the process in a way, and who also know how to hold sacred space and hold those boundaries. Oh, we lost her. Anyway, for the folks who are here, I hope you're enjoying the conversation. I got you. Bringing you back on.
When somebody calls, which I have notifications off, my apologies. So I couldn't hear you once I came back on.
I was also mumbling. But no, I would definitely love to have you on the team, of like basically taking what I do when I host tea times, right, with the cards, and expanding that, because
I love that.
I can MC that, but I can't like do all the things. And I think, and also, it's also not something that I necessarily want to center myself in all the things. I really want to teach frameworks and have people be able to take that and run with it and have it be living work.
Yes.
Like this book is going to be, it's a living thing. So anyway, we'll talk about that.
I love that though. I just have to presence and celebrate you for like what you do bring to your get-togethers and friend time, because I remember the first time I did go and you busted out them cards and I was like, she got me talking to this person. I know it's her friend. I don't know this person yet. And I got it. So much resistance came up, but then it goes so deep, so fast in a beautiful way. And it's just, wow. Which also made me see the contrast. And was I really being fully present and showing up when I was with people? Right. So it's so beautiful. I'm very grateful for that and for the spaces that you hold. So that's a big old yes for me. I'm more than happy to help
I mean,
facilitate.
you could have left. You could have clammed up, but also, that it speaks to a level of trust that you have about my
You.
judgment of character and what
Yes.
what I allow in my space. So
Exactly.
definitely would not put anybody intentionally in a tough spot. But contribution to the space is definitely heart and connection relationship building, because as I said, like as I've gotten older, I realized like how that skill and that capacity and that ability to do that really is not existing for many people across the board. Like, I mean, I saw it in school growing up, like elementary, middle, like, and I'm just like, oh, like y'all really just don't connect. Like, and I get like you don't have connection at home as well too, but like so that is a big contribution. And also just the way that I think, because I do think in terms of nature and cycles and the stars.
Yeah.
And I understand that thinking that way automatically aligns you with things, because that is the divine.
What you are.
Separate thing, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, connection, thinking heart is what I
Oh,
bring.
I love that. Thinking heart. And thinking heart with like amazing vocabulary. No, for real. I'm like, you're such a wordsmith. And I miss that. I miss that about myself. I feel like when I was in school and I was like, so much of that was present. And some of that is just being dumbed down by like text messages. And I mean, I'm speaking for myself. And social media has shifted even the way I like, sometimes I'll catch myself writing and it's such shorthand email writing. I'm like, oh, what is it like? Or I'll read some of my old stuff. I'm like, damn, girl. Like, ooh, I need to, not need to do anything, but I really appreciate that about you. Like, I really love your respect for language and the way that you use words powerfully.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It helps me shift my perspective myself, because I'm just like, I need to read a whole lot more than what I'm reading. And like, I need to get better at communicating, because there's so much. And like, is what I'm saying landing?
Yes.
All the things that I'm saying with this word, but like also I have to understand like this word has a certain kind of like societal context, and it can trigger this kind of like, that's what's happening in my mind.
I hear you. And right, which I love. I love sharing that, right? Because people
But that
have
also might
like,
be
oh,
like,
she just speaks so blah, blah, blah. And you're like,
right.
actually, I'm filtering all this stuff to want to really consciously communicate.
Yeah. And that's, so I can receive that, because that's why it's landing, is because there is so much consciousness that goes into what comes out, because I understand like, oh, this has consequences.
Yes.
This actually is going to shift consciousness. This is going to incite an insight in someone's mind.
Yes.
There's power in that. Which is why I will not ever be running from social media, because I'm like, I will take up space here.
Which
like,
I am learning from you.
This thinking mind. You like, I'm not going to let clicks take over and have the power. It's like, no, the game is the game, and I came to play.
Hey, yes.
Yes.
And with that, shoot.
And with that, we are definitely way past our time. It's 11.
I know, we're past our time. I don't want it to end. Bring me back later in the year, please.
No, I definitely will. I have a queue next month, and then I think I have someone I should just double check to confirm for March. But beyond that, I'll definitely see what comes through. But I would love to have you back again.
Yay.
Or I think that'd be great, especially like given the amount of change that I know is going to be happening for both of us in these next couple months. I'm like, where are we going to be landing?
Exactly. I'm like, by the time we come back, like it's going to be like, oh, girl, like, whew, who knows? I'm in awe. Let's see.
So real quick though, when is your program going to be starting? Because I like to, big up my people.
Thank you. Yes. Doing another round of Woman is Creator beginning February 22nd.
Okay.
So I'll be announcing that February. Well, I'm announcing it now, but February 2nd, you'll start to hear a lot more about it. And I'm still have 2 spaces left for one-on-one clients. I usually go a little bit lighter in the beginning of the year because acting wise is busy. So to really be able to hold space, I have 2 more spaces left for one-on-one. But yeah, February 22nd. Woman is Creator. Right now, you can actually go to my Linktree at Diahnna Nicole on Instagram, and my link in bio is there. And you can actually click on Women's Creator, find out more about the program, and sign up to have a call with me. If you really feel, literally, energetically feel that it's in alignment and that you also maybe want more information, and let's see if we're a right fit, because it really is about, it's about the energy between myself and the client, even beyond the program. Program is like, gives us some structure, but it really is about the relationship. And if that is meant to be in connection for the next evolution. So that's what's happening. And some more workshops will be coming up too, but not ready to necessarily announce those yet. But I think I'm going to be doing a lot more workshops this year. I feel like there's just so much coming through where it's just like, when I'm like, okay, this wants to be shared. It doesn't necessarily need to be shared in like a 3-month format. So yeah, there's just lots coming through, and I'm still kind of allowing what's coming through to come through. And I'm going to have a ton of notes to look through as I get to create these workshops. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So Diahnna's information is in the description box of the video. So her Instagram and her website is there. So as she said, go to her Instagram for that info. I did her Woman as Creator program, the last iteration she just did, and that really helped me reset, and I got exactly what I need out of it. So thank you so much. It really helped to like land the intention for 2021 for me, which is basically like recover and recalibrate to living as my baseline versus surviving.
Amen.
So
I feel like that's happening too. I know we're wrapping up, but I feel that I feel like this us just reclaiming wealth, and I'm talking about money, wealth, all of wealth, money, wealth. Like that's like, I'm like, oh, all right, let me go ahead and I'm really feeling that for us right now. So I'm excited.
Yeah. I'm excited too. And that's also, for me with my work, I'm pivoting my group coaching to business coaching. I've already been doing it but on a one-on-one scale, but now I'm just like, let me actually share the principles and the frameworks quickly and easily, because it's just like, you got to get this information out, because I can feel there's a big shift of folks who are like, I either am in business for myself and I need to scale up. I like haven't been able to get past a certain level, or this pandemic has taught me that I need to go into business for myself.
There's a lot. Yeah.
There's a lot. So that program for me, I'll also be announcing beginning of February, but that won't start until March. So it'll be about a 30-day open window for that. And it'll also be 3 months. It'll be a much shorter process because I want to cycle through more, because I want to connect with more people. But
yeah, and
that is too. It's going to be the program is really focused on helping you think differently. That's the whole thing, is like, how can I basically see things the way they are, and in relation to and in alignment to the actual call.
There we go.
Right. And that's the important shift that I see consistently not being anchored. And that's what this program is about. So it doesn't need to be lengthy, because it's just like, no, like if you get this and start with this, it will make everything so much easier.
Right.
And I'm looking for that.
And I think that's one of your gifts and your contributions as well, is that you make things digestible in a simple way that's very powerful and still anchored in that person's why and their authenticity, and aligned with, okay, let me look at your chart for your business. And I'm like, wait, what? I love it. So yeah. And yeah, that's just shout out to you as well. Like, I had a call with you and it was so wonderful, and the things that came out of that, and some things that are still percolating. It's like not fully clear, but it's all there. And for me, I think the biggest thing was tailoring my time with my business in a way that works for me. Like so much of it is just getting out of the programming of this is what it's supposed to look like. This is how many hours a day you're supposed to do. This is what time of day you're supposed to do that. Da, 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 da. And it's just like in entrepreneurship, there's so much freedom,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And it's like, okay, yeah, no, what does this look like for you that also still honors your business? But honors your energy and your space and your time and so I'm so excited. I'm really excited for the folks that are going to come through your program. And it's interesting because over the weekend while I was out and about, there was a man I was speaking to who's just coming into his recognition of like his own powers. And I literally was like, well, wow, I would really like the light work at Incubate. And I was like, what am I going to tell people to go do now? What?
Well,
you know that's gonna have to come back. You know that's gonna come back.
Keep their info, because
can you make it an evergreen product in some way or no?
Yeah, I think I'm actually going to end up doing that.
You have to.
Yeah. It is. I won't be.
You're like,
I won't be connected. It would just have to be evergreen, and people would do it on their own, which is fine. But like, it's, you know, yeah. But I think that actually will end up being what's happening.
Yeah. I'm just saying.
It's not, it's not supposed to go away, and it is part of the institute that I'm creating. It's just Spirit is like, you have the group coaching has to shift to this because this is actually where people are needing. They're not to say the soul work isn't important, but you don't have to energetically steward that the way that you have been. So I think it's actually going to be more of that evergreen situation without a coaching component to it. So people just do it as a self-directed process.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, because it still gives the, anyways, I was just thinking of you over the weekend, darling. When I met this person, I was like, yes, Lightworker Incubator. So
yeah, I'll definitely keep folks posted. I wouldn't be making announcements about that until after I at least get this first group set up for the new business coaching.
Yeah.
So maybe like late spring, summertime. Yeah, that's feeling what it actually needs to go to in order to be sustainable.
Yeah, and I think it has so much value where it's like that gets to be, whatever level you're at within your own inquiry when it comes to your gifts and your clear abilities and everything else. Like the Evergreen Lightwork Incubator, awesome. Like no matter what, it has so much value. And then, depending on what comes through you and what you want to do later, yes, the business coaching, but maybe you want to do only advanced only that they've had to actually do that and work it. I don't know. Anyways, I'm gonna have
yeah. I mean, for sure. There's so much that I've already gotten a peek of that is in the path for Initial Alchemy, and there's obviously a lot more that I don't see. But I'm just like, oh, like there's the level of access that people have now, it's going to continue to get less and less.
Yeah.
Just because like I'm like the working with groups in particular, I think is really going to start to come through in a bigger way later on. Which is why I'm like, I'm glad you want to help because I'm more than happy to bring you on and like give you lots of money.
Well, I've received lots of money and I love working with you. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we'll take it offline and talk some more because I just remember even in 2020 where we're like, we're going to do a retreat. We got all stuff to talk about. We'll see what's coming up. Yeah. But
we definitely, like one-off stuff like that, but what I'm thinking about is like bigger national, international stuff. Like that's
no, I hear you on that. And it's crazy because a vision board I did before literally talks about the wellness initiative and me supporting them. And I remember when that popped out at me, I'm like, what? That was not in my consciousness 2 years ago. Right. And so it's interesting. I love how universe works in that way.
Looking ahead.
Yeah. Looking ahead.
All right. Well, this has been absolute, as we're at 11:22. This is what we call, for the folks who are not of our culture, this is the Black goodbye. So there's usually a couple of goodbyes that happen. So the first one is not the actual goodbye.
Yeah, exactly.
But thank you so much, Diahnna, for your time. I'm so excited for your career win.
Yay.
I'm so excited for the the unfolding healing that's happening in family,
Yes.
all the discoveries and all the landing into what's here and now. And yeah, I'm also so appreciative that you were saying yes to be my first conversation to set the standard for the realness and for the openness and for the variety of things that, you know, can be addressed here. So yeah, I like this new direction of conversations that we're doing. And I look forward to seeing you again back here at some month in the future this year.
Yay.
Thank you to everybody who's been here for this month journey. Again, next month I'll have Quincy Xavier joining, who is a thinker. So those conversations, if you
get out your thesaurus.
Yeah, if you want to see Jynnette in like true Oracle mode, like my conversations with that one, we start getting into just all the things. So I'm so excited for those combos, because they're also just going to be like ridiculous and extra and black. Yeah, so I'm excited. But I love you all. Thank you so much for your support. Of course, please share, please subscribe, and please like the video. Please support Diahnna's business. If it's not for you, just share her profile, all the things. This is what we do. You know, this is my practice. This is how I show up. So I expect the same from y'all, and it is an expectation if you're going to be in community with me. So yeah, support her business, support mine, and let's continue moving forward. All right. Any last words from you?
Yeah. I just thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Goodbye, y'all. See you, God willing, next month.